Hey there, Alex here. It's been a while since my last Oppo phone, the Find 7A. It was a bad enough experience to make me avoid their phones for years. But with their aggressive marketing these days in Singapore, I thought I'll give them another chance. This is a stunning looking phone, especially in this shade of red. Some may call it inspired by iPhone, but I think Oppo took it to the next level. It's really thin and the curve at the sides feels great in the hand. I also love how the antenna lines and chamfered edges looks on the phone. Talking about iPhone look-alike, you even get this case in the box that looks like the one that Apple is selling. But I'm not complaining about the free case though. I also love how they use a black front unlike Apple, and I also love how fast the fingerprint sensor is. It's using a 5.5-inch Full HD AMOLED screen, which looks to be the exact same panel that the OnePlus 5 is using, which means that while it looks good indoors, outdoor visibility isn't that great. The panel looks greyish under direct lighting compared to other displays, and yes, I can even see a bit of jello effect while scrolling. I've seen some reviews that mention the lack of an oleophobic coating as well, so I'll recommend just keeping the pre-installed screen protector on. I also wish that it copied the OnePlus 5's capacitive buttons. It's just way more flexible, and the default Android buttons just looks a bit off when you swap the order like this. The R11 is the first phone to utilize the Snapdragon 660 chipset, probably the best 600 series chipset from Qualcomm so far, and comes with a few features normally found on higher-end chipsets. It's paired with a good enough amount of storage and RAM as well. In day-to-day usage, the performance is pretty decent considering the heavy skin that Oppo uses. Apps launches quickly and playing games on the highest graphics settings are mostly smooth with just a bit of dropped frames once in a while. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with the chipset. Battery efficiency seems good too, even with just 3000 mAh. A day of heavy use is easily achievable, and Oppo's fast charge solution is still one of the best I've used. There are two downsides here though. The fast charging requires a proprietary charger and is still using a micro USB port, which I don't think is acceptable even on a mid-range phone in 2017. I know software experiences are always quite subjective. One man's meat might be another man's poison. ColorOS 3.1 is as toxic as it gets for me. The best way to describe it would be a bad iOS clone, from the control center, settings page, notifications, and the way some apps looks. And these are things that I can't really change with a launcher. For me, I switch around iOS and Android devices frequently, and the UI differences are sort of second nature to me now. So when I use Android, I have a certain expectation of how things work. Same for iOS. Maybe I'll get used to it, but this disconnect really throws me off. There are some nice ideas in the software, like the screen off gestures or the ability to clone some apps, but these are really nothing new or unique. Of course, if we are specifically looking for an Android phone that looks like iOS, this is as good as you're gonna get. Talking about being similar to iOS, the camera setup is pretty much the same story. You get a 16 megapixel main camera with a 20 megapixel secondary camera that gives a simulated 2x zoom. It's a familiar setup to the OnePlus 5 I reviewed earlier with a few minor differences, like the camera actually switches at the 2x mark rather than at 1.6x. The metering of the images is just a tad brighter than what I like, but it's not a big deal. And most importantly, the image processing actually looks better than the OnePlus 5. The camera's dynamic range is actually decent, details looks good, and the camera doesn't exaggerate the colors too much. Most of the time, it's a pretty nice experience. You also get portrait mode of course, with a decent looking effect if the background is not so complicated. The secondary camera doesn't really work in low light conditions though, so when you're zooming in, it's all just digital zoom, which is why I still prefer a wide angle or a monochrome secondary camera over this setup. Image quality in low light is actually still pretty good as long as you have steady hands, something that I wasn't really expecting from a mid-range phone. Video recording wise, as long as you stick to Full HD, you'll still get decent electronic stabilization. One of the highlights of the phone is actually the front camera, which is a whopping 20 megapixel sensor. I don't think it's necessary, but the images does looks nice. In normal shooting mode, the camera produces natural looking selfies with nice details, and you can simply switch to beauty mode if you want to. At 699 Singapore dollars, it's a pretty expensive mid-range phone. Not to mention a few other compromises I haven't talked about, like the lack of NFC for mobile payments, the average sounding speaker, and the lack of any sort of water resistance. Then looking at the prices with a 2 years contract with a local carrier, you can get an LG G6 at a cheaper price, or the Xperia XZ Premium at just a tiny bit more. Even if you're looking to buy it off contract, the OnePlus 5 is just a better phone and a better deal. I do get that for regular consumers, they probably won't care about some of the things that I'm complaining about. When you talk about the basics like the performance of the phone, the battery life, the screen quality, and the cameras, it's actually a decent phone. The image quality is actually better than the OnePlus 5 despite a similar setup. But I'm going to assume that since you're watching this review, you're a bit more interested in tech like me. To me, at the price that Oppo is asking, it's just not a phone that I think is worth buying. Thanks for watching my review of the Oppo R11. If you want to see more reviews in the future, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks and see you guys on the next one.